The double doors slammed open at 9:47 p.m., and the smell hit first. Burnt rubber, gasoline, and something copper-sweet that made the triage nurse look up from her tablet. 2 LAPD officers dragged in a kid, maybe 17, blood trailing from his sneakers like breadcrumbs. His hands were zip-tied behind his back. His eyes were wild. "GSW to the shoulder, stable vitals, but he's got intel," one cop muttered, scanning the waiting room. "We need a private bay. Now." Charge nurse Diane Cross didn't even blink. She pointed to Trauma Bay 3 with 2 fingers, her voice flat and practiced. "Bay 3, curtain it, no visitors." The kid screamed something in Spanish as they hauled him through. The automatic doors hissed shut behind them, and for a moment, the Los Angeles Metro ER returned to its usual controlled chaos. A toddler wailing in his mother's lap, an elderly man clutching his chest, a woman with a kitchen knife still embedded in her forearm wrapped in a blood-soaked towel. Typical Saturday night, except it wasn't. Across the room, standing near the supply closet in mint green scrubs that looked 2 sizes too big, was the new nurse. She'd started 3 weeks ago. No one knew much about her except her name, Riley Kincaid, and that she was quiet, competent, and kept her head down during handoff. She never ate lunch with the team, never complained, never asked questions. Right now she was watching the cops with an intensity that didn't match her job title. Diane caught her staring. "Kincaid, you good?" Riley blinked, reset her face into something neutral. "Yeah, just a lot tonight. Welcome to Metro ER." Diane turned back to her tablet, swiping through incoming ambulance alerts. "We've got 2 more traumas inbound. Probable MVA. ETA 6 minutes. Prep Bay 1. Riley nodded and moved fast, pulling gloves from the dispenser, her hands steady as she checked the crash cart, recalibrated the monitors, ensured the intubation tray was stocked. She worked like someone who'd done this 1,000 times, even though her file said she'd only worked pediatrics before this. Diane made a mental note to ask HR about that later. The ambulance arrived at 9:53 p.m. Paramedics unloaded a woman in her 40s, unconscious, cervical collar in place, blood pooling under the backboard. The second gurney carried a teenage girl, awake and screaming for her mom. "Multi-vehicle pileup on the 110, the lead paramedic said, rattling off vitals. "Mom's a level red, daughter's yellow, possible internal bleeding. We've got 3 more coming." Diane split the team. "Martinez, take the daughter to Bay 2. Kincaid, you're with me on Mom." Riley fell in beside her without hesitation, hands already moving, cutting away the woman's shirt, applying leads, calling out numbers as the monitor beeped to life. Her voice was calm, clinical, every syllable clipped and clear. "BP 80/50, heart rate 120, resp shallow, pupils sluggish. Fluids wide open," Diane ordered. "Someone page Dr. Okafor." Riley was already reaching for the IV kit. That's when the lights flickered. Just once. A half-second brownout that made the monitor stutter and reset. The ventilator in Bay 4 let out a single angry beep before stabilizing. The air conditioning hummed louder, then softer, like the building was breathing wrong. Diane frowned. What the hell was that? Before anyone could answer, the intercom crackled to life. The voice that came through wasn't the usual hospital operator. It was male, unfamiliar, and cold enough to freeze the room. "Attention all staff. This is Incident Command. Effective immediately, Los Angeles Metro ER is under Code Silver lockdown. All external doors are sealed. No one enters. No one leaves. Await further instructions." The words hung in the air like smoke. Diane's tablet buzzed. She looked down. A system-wide alert. Lockdown protocol active. Maintain positions. Do not evacuate. She glanced at the main entrance. The automatic doors were still. The red LED above them blinked once, then stayed lit. Locked. Someone in the waiting room stood up. "What does that mean? I need to get my kid home. Sit down," Diane snapped, her command voice kicking in. She turned to Riley, lowering her tone. "Kincaid, check the exits. All of them. I want eyes on every door." Riley didn't ask why. She just moved, slipping past gurneys and supply carts, her sneakers silent on the linoleum. Diane watched her go, something uneasy curling in her gut. The woman on the table in Bay 1 started coding. "She's crashing!" Martinez yelled. Diane spun back, adrenaline snapping her into focus. "Start compressions. Get me epi, 1 milligram." The lights flickered again. This time they stayed dim for 3 full seconds before surging back. And in that darkness, Diane heard it. The sound of someone running in the hallway outside the ER. Heavy boots, fast and deliberate, heading toward the service corridor. When the lights came back, Riley was standing in the doorway, her face pale, her voice low and tight. "Diane, all the exits are locked. Emergency override isn't responding, and there's someone in the stairwell." Diane's stomach dropped. "Who?" Riley's jaw tightened. And for the first time since she'd started working here, Diane saw something flicker behind her eyes, something sharp, tactical, and way too familiar with danger. I don't know yet, Riley said quietly, but they're armed. The woman in Bay 1 flatlined at 10:02 p.m. Diane didn't have time to process it. She called time of death in a voice that sounded like someone else's, then turned to the daughter in Bay 2, who was still screaming for her mom. Martinez was holding the girl's hand, whispering something soothing, but the monitor showed her BP dropping. She's hemorrhaging internally, Martinez said, eyes wide. We need surgery. Now. Surgery's upstairs, Diane shot back. And we're locked down. The intercom crackled again. Same cold voice. All personnel, remain at your stations. This is not a drill. Code Silver is in effect. Local law enforcement has been notified. Do not attempt to breach the doors. Diane grabbed her phone. No signal. She tried the landline at the nurse's station. Dead air. Comms are down, she said, more to herself than anyone else. Riley appeared beside her, moving like a shadow. Her scrubs were still too big, but the way she carried herself had changed. Shoulders back, eyes scanning. She looked like someone assessing a battlefield. Diane, listen to me, Riley said, voice low and fast. Whoever locked us in cut the phone lines and jammed the cell towers. That's not standard protocol. That's coordinated. Diane stared at her. How do you know that? Riley hesitated for half a second, then pivoted. Doesn't matter. What matters is we've got critical patients, limited resources, and zero contact with the outside. We need to lock down our supplies, secure the medication room, and get a head count of everyone in the ER. I'm the charge nurse, Diane said slowly. That's my job. Then do it. Riley's tone wasn't harsh, just certain, because in about 3 minutes, panic's going to hit and you'll lose control of this room. As if on cue, a man in the waiting area stood up shouting, I'm not staying here. My wife's at home. She needs her insulin. He made a move toward the main entrance. 2 other people followed. Sir, stop, Diane called out, but her voice got swallowed by the rising noise. Riley moved. She crossed the room in 4 strides, stepping directly into the man's path. She didn't touch him, didn't raise her voice. Just stood there, hands visible, posture open, but immovable. Sir, I need you to sit down. Who the hell are you? I'm the person keeping you alive tonight. Her voice was calm, but it had an edge that made the man stop cold. Right now, we don't know what's happening outside those doors. What we do know is that you're safe in here. The second you try to leave, that changes. So sit down. The man blinked. Then, slowly, he sat. Riley turned to the rest of the waiting room. Everyone else, same goes for you. We're going to get through this, but only if you follow instructions. Stay in your seats. Stay quiet. Let us work. The room settled. Not calm, but controlled. Diane watched, stunned. Riley wasn't asking for permission. She was commanding the space like she'd done it before. Who the hell are you? Diane muttered under her breath. Riley turned back to her, face unreadable. Right now, I'm your best chance. Before Diane could respond, one of the LAPD officers from earlier, the one who'd brought in the gunshot kid, came jogging out of Trauma Bay 3, his radio squealing static. We've got a problem, he said, breathing hard. The kid's talking. Says there's a crew planning to hit the ER tonight. Something about a shipment? Diane's blood went cold. What kind of shipment? Drugs. Fentanyl, maybe more. He says they've got someone on the inside. Riley's expression didn't change, but her hand drifted toward the pocket of her scrubs. Diane noticed. Inside where? Diane asked. The cop looked around the ER, his hand resting on his sidearm. Inside here. The second officer emerged from Bay 3, face grim. We need to sweep the staff. Now. You can't just accuse my people, Diane started, but Riley cut her off. He's right. Riley's voice was flat, factual. If there's someone feeding intel to whoever's running this lockdown, they'll know our protocols, our shifts, our blind spots. We need to assume they're listening. Diane turned on her. And why should I trust you? You've been here 3 weeks. No one knows anything about you. Riley met her gaze, unflinching. You shouldn't, but you don't have a choice. The lights flickered again. This time they went out completely for 5 full seconds. In the darkness, Diane heard the hiss of the ventilator alarms, the panicked breathing of patients, and somewhere far off, the metallic clang of a fire door slamming shut. When the lights came back, Riley was already moving toward the medication room, her hand on the keypad. Kincaid, what are you doing? Diane yelled. Riley punched in the override code, one that required charge nurse clearance. The door clicked open. Diane's heart hammered. How did you know that code? Riley stepped inside, scanning the shelves with the efficiency of someone conducting an inventory under fire. She pulled 3 vials of morphine, 2 of fentanyl, checked the logs, then froze. "Diane, get in here." Diane pushed through the door. Riley was holding the medication log, her finger pressed to a line halfway down the page. "Someone signed out 10 vials of fentanyl 2 hours ago," Riley said quietly. "But the signature's forged. Look at the timestamp. It's during shift change. No one would have noticed." Diane felt the floor tilt under her. "Who signed it out?" Riley turned the log around. The name scrawled in blue ink was Diane Cross. Diane's mouth went dry. "That's not my handwriting." "I know." Riley's eyes were sharp, calculating. "Which means whoever's inside isn't just stealing drugs. They're framing you." Before Diane could respond, a scream tore through the ER. They both ran. In the waiting room, a woman was on the floor, convulsing. Foam bubbled at her lips. Her boyfriend was kneeling beside her, shouting for help. "She just collapsed," he yelled. "She was fine," and then Riley dropped to her knees, checking the woman's pupils. Pinpoint. Breathing shallow. Skin cold. "Opioid overdose," Riley said, already reaching for the Narcan kit. "Someone dosed her." Diane's stomach turned. "How? She's been sitting here the whole time." Riley pulled a syringe from the woman's purse. Empty. Clean. Planted. "She didn't dose herself," Riley said quietly, locking eyes with Diane. "Someone in this room did." And that's when Diane realized the lockdown wasn't to keep people out. It was to keep someone in. The woman stopped seizing at 10:11 p.m., 30 seconds after Riley pushed the Narcan into her vein. Her boyfriend was still on his knees, shaking, his hands slick with sweat. The waiting room had gone silent. Everyone watching, everyone calculating how close they were to the doors. Riley stood scanning faces. 42 people. She'd counted them twice. Staff, patients, visitors. Someone in this room had just tried to kill a woman to send a message, or to create chaos. Diane was on her feet, barking orders. "Martinez, get her on a gurney, monitor her vitals. If she crashes again, I want you on it." She turned to the boyfriend. "Did you see anyone approach her? Anyone hand her something?" He shook his head, eyes red. "No. She went to the bathroom, came back, sat down. Then she just collapsed." Riley's jaw tightened. The bathroom. Public access. No cameras in the stalls. Perfect blind spot. She moved toward Diane, keeping her voice low. "We need to lock down the bathrooms. No one goes in or out alone." "You're not in charge here," Diane snapped. But there was no heat in it, just exhaustion, fear. "Then start acting like you are," Riley said evenly. "Because right now, you're reacting, and whoever's running this is 3 moves ahead." Diane opened her mouth to respond, but the intercom cut her off. "Attention all personnel." The voice was different this time. Female. Clipped. Professional. "Code Silver remains in effect. A security sweep is underway. Do not interfere with authorized personnel. Repeat. Do not interfere." Riley's eyes narrowed. Authorized by who? One of the LAPD officers, Officer Brennan, according to his name tag, stepped forward, hand on his radio. "Dispatch isn't responding. I can't raise anyone outside this building." "Because they don't want you to," Riley said. Brennan turned on her. "And who the hell are you to say that?" Riley didn't flinch. "Someone who's seen this before?" The air in the room shifted. Diane caught it. So did Brennan. "Seen what before?" Diane asked carefully. Riley's expression stayed neutral, but something flickered behind her eyes. Something old and sharp. A hostile takeover. You isolate the target, cut communications, sow confusion, then extract what you came for while everyone's scrambling. Brennan's hand moved closer to his gun. "You sound like you've run one." "I've stopped one," Riley said flatly. "And if you want to get out of this alive, you'll listen." Diane stepped between them, her voice hard. "Everyone calm down. We're not turning on each other. That's exactly what they want." Riley nodded once, then turned to Brennan. "How many rounds do you have?" He hesitated. 2 mags. 30 rounds total. "And your partner?" "Same." Riley did the math in her head. 60 rounds between 2 officers, 42 civilians, unknown number of hostiles. "We can't shoot our way out." She looked at Diane. "What's your supply situation?" Diane pulled up the inventory on her tablet. Miraculously, the internal network was still live. "We've got maybe 6 hours of critical meds if we ration, 12 if we stretch. Oxygen's good. Blood bank's locked. But we've got 4 units of ONEG in the fridge." "What about the ICU?" Riley asked. "Upstairs. Separate wing. Sealed doors. Can you contact them?" Diane tried the internal line. It rang twice. Then a nurse picked up. "ICU, this is Jenna." "Jenna, it's Diane in the ER. What's your status?" "We're locked down too. Got the same Code Silver alert. No external comms. What the hell's going on down there?" Diane glanced at Riley, who was listening intently. "We're trying to figure that out. How many patients do you have?" 12. 3 on vents. We're stable for now, but if the power goes out, it won't, Riley interrupted, leaning toward the phone. Jenna, this is Nurse Kincaid. Do you have access to the backup generators? Yeah. They're in the sub-basement, but I can't leave my patients. You won't have to. Riley's mind was already working. If the lights go out, the generators should kick in automatically. But if someone sabotaged them, you'll have 90 seconds of battery backup. Make sure your crash carts are charged and your manual resuscitators are ready. Jenna's voice tightened. You think they're going to cut the power? I think they already have a plan, Riley said. We just haven't seen it yet. She hung up before Jenna could respond. Diane stared at her. You want to tell me how you know all this? Riley met her gaze. I worked in a field hospital, Baghdad, 2019. We dealt with coordinated attacks on medical facilities. This has the same signature. Diane's eyes widened. You were military? I was a lot of things. Riley's tone made it clear the conversation was over. She turned to Brennan. I need you to do a quiet sweep of the staff. Anyone acting off? Anyone who's been near the medication room in the last 3 hours? I want to know. Brennan bristled. I don't take orders from nurses. Then take them from me, Diane said, her voice hard. Do it. Brennan hesitated, then nodded and moved off. Riley pulled Diane aside, her voice barely above a whisper. We need to talk about the kid in Bay 3. The GSW? Yeah. He said there's someone on the inside. What if he's the distraction? Diane frowned. What do you mean? Think about it. Cops bring in a kid with intel. Everyone focuses on him. Meanwhile, someone else is moving freely through the ER. Riley's eyes scanned the room. We've been looking at the patients. We should be looking at the staff. Diane's stomach dropped. You think it's one of us? I think someone in this hospital knew exactly when to trigger the lockdown. And they knew how to forge your signature. Riley's gaze was steady, unflinching. Who has access to your credentials? Diane thought fast. Charge nurses, administration, IT, maybe a dozen people. Make a list. Cross-reference who's on shift tonight. Before Diane could respond, the lights went out. This time, they stayed out. The emergency backup lights kicked in, dim red bulbs casting the ER in a crimson glow. Somewhere in the distance, a generator coughed to life, then stuttered. And in the silence that followed, Diane heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming from the service corridor. Riley's hand moved to her pocket. When it came back out, she was holding something small and black, a tactical knife. Diane's breath caught. Where the hell did you get that? Riley's voice was calm, cold. I told you, I was a lot of things. The footsteps stopped. Then from the darkness of the corridor, a voice called out. Low, amused, and far too familiar. Riley Kincaid. I was wondering when you'd show up. Riley's entire body went rigid, her face drained of color. Diane grabbed her arm. You know who that is? Riley's jaw clenched. Her voice came out quiet, laced with something Diane had never heard before. Fear. Yeah, Riley whispered. I know him. And then the shooting started. The first shot shattered the window of the supply closet. Glass exploded inward, raining down on the linoleum in 1,000 glittering shards. Someone in the waiting room screamed. Diane hit the floor on instinct, dragging Riley down with her. Everybody down, Brennan roared, drawing his weapon. His partner, Officer Hayes, took cover behind the nurse's station, scanning the corridor with her sidearm raised. Riley didn't stay down. She rolled left, low and fast, moving toward the edge of the trauma bay where the angle gave her cover. Her hand was still wrapped around the tactical knife, but her eyes were locked on the darkened corridor where the voice had come from. Riley! The voice called again, echoing off the tile. You really thought you could just disappear? Start over? Play nurse? Diane scrambled behind a gurney, her heart jackhammering. Who the hell is that? Riley's face was stone. His name is Garrett Voss, former Army Ranger. Dishonorable discharge. Last I heard, he was running black market medical supply chains in Central America. And how do you know him? Riley didn't answer. She was counting. Diane could see it in the way her eyes tracked the corridor, the way her breathing had slowed to something mechanical. Another shot rang out. This one punched through the crash cart, sending IV bags and tubing spilling across the floor. Brennan fired back twice, the muzzle flash lighting up the ER in strobing bursts. Brennan, stop! Riley hissed. You're wasting ammo. He's not trying to hit anyone. He's hurting us. Hurting us where? Diane demanded. Riley's eyes flicked to the main entrance, then to the locked service corridor, then back to the medication room. Away from the drugs. It clicked. This whole thing, Diane breathed. The lockdown, the overdose, the shooting. It's all a diversion. Not a diversion, Riley corrected. A smash and grab. They lock us down, create chaos, take what they need, and disappear before SWAT breaks through. Brennan crawled over, keeping his head low. If that's true, why the hell are they still here? Riley's jaw tightened. Because I'm here. The intercom crackled. Voss's voice poured through the speakers now, smooth and mocking. I have to hand it to you, Riley. New name, new life, new scrubs. Very convincing. But you can't hide from your past, especially when your past is standing 20 feet away with a very specific grudge. Diane grabbed Riley's arm. What is he talking about? Riley finally looked at her. Her eyes were hard, but there was something underneath, something raw. 3 years ago, I was part of a joint task force. DEA, FBI, military advisors. We raided one of Voss's supply depots in Tijuana. He lost $15 million in product and half his crew. She paused. Including his brother. Diane's stomach turned. So this is personal. Everything with Voss is personal. Riley shifted, peering around the edge of the gurney. He's not just here for the fentanyl. He's here for me. Another voice cut through the dark. Female, sharp, closer than Voss. All clear in the west wing. Medication room is open. We've got the shipment. Diane's blood ran cold. They're already inside. Riley swore under her breath. She turned to Brennan. How many exits does this ER have? 4. Main entrance, ambulance bay, service corridor, and the staff exit near radiology. And all of them are locked from the outside, Riley said, thinking fast. Which means they have someone controlling the system, probably in security or IT. Hayes spoke up from behind the desk, her voice tight. We need backup. SWAT, LAPD, anyone. They're already on their way, Riley said. But Voss knows that, which means he's got a timer. He'll grab what he needs and ghost before the cavalry arrives. She looked at Diane. How long until SWAT typically responds to a code silver? Diane's mind raced. 15 minutes, maybe 20 if they're staging. Riley checked the wall clock. It was 10:18 p.m. They've been inside for at least 10 minutes. That gives us maybe 5 more before they bail. Then we stall them, Brennan said. No. Riley's voice was cold, certain. We end this. Diane stared at her. You want to go after him? I want to stop him from walking out of here with enough fentanyl to kill half of Los Angeles. Riley's eyes were locked on the corridor. And I want to make sure he doesn't come back. Before anyone could argue, the lights surged back on. Full power, blinding after the red glow. The sudden brightness made everyone flinch. Riley used the moment. She moved. Fast, low, silent. Diane barely saw her go. 1 second, Riley was crouched beside the gurney. The next, she was sprinting toward the medication room, knife in hand, her body moving like she'd done this 100 times. Kincaid, wait! Diane yelled, but Riley was already gone, slipping through the door and into the back hallway. Brennan swore and started to follow, but Hayes grabbed his arm. We can't leave the civilians unprotected. Then I'll go. Diane was already on her feet, adrenaline overriding fear. She grabbed a pair of trauma shears from the nurse's station, pathetic as weapons, but better than nothing, and ran after Riley. The back hallway was darker, lit only by flickering emergency lights. Diane could hear voices ahead, low, clipped, tactical. She pressed herself against the wall, moving as quietly as she could. Riley was already at the medication room door. It was open. Inside, 2 figures in black tactical gear were loading vials into duffel bags with the efficiency of people who'd done this before. One of them was a woman, mid-30s, blonde, scar across her cheek. The other was a man built like a tank, his hands moving fast despite his size. Riley stepped into the doorway. That's far enough. Both figures froze. The woman's hand drifted toward her waistband. Don't, Riley said quietly. The knife was visible now, held low and ready. You pull that gun, I'll put this through your wrist before you clear leather. The woman smiled. It wasn't friendly. Riley Kincaid. Voss said you'd show up. Where is he? Close. The woman zipped the duffel bag shut, slinging it over her shoulder. But you already know that, don't you? You can feel him, like old times. Riley's grip on the knife tightened. Last chance, put the bag down and walk away. The woman laughed. Or what? You'll stop us? You're one person. We're an army. Then let's even the odds, Diane said, stepping into the hallway behind Riley, shears raised. The woman's smile faded. She looked at Riley, then at Diane, then back at Riley. You're really going to die for a hospital full of strangers? Riley's voice didn't waver. I've died for less. The woman's hand moved toward her gun. Riley moved faster. The knife flashed. The woman's gun clattered to the floor. She screamed, clutching her hand. The man lunged, but Riley was already pivoting, driving her elbow into his throat. He went down choking. Diane grabbed the duffel bag. Got it! Riley spun, breathing hard, eyes scanning for threats. The hallway was clear. For now. We need to move. Riley said. Voss won't let this go. They ran back toward the ER, Diane clutching the bag, Riley covering their six. Behind them, Diane could hear the woman shouting into a radio. They've got the shipment! Repeat, they've got the... The transmission cut off. And then, from somewhere deep in the building, an alarm started wailing. Not the code silver alert. Something else. Riley stopped dead. Her face went pale. What? Diane demanded. What is that? Riley's voice was barely a whisper. That's the ICU. Diane's heart stopped. Jenna! Riley was already running. The stairwell door slammed open, and Riley took the steps 3 at a time, Diane right behind her, the duffel bag bouncing against her hip. The ICU alarm was a different pitch, higher, sharper, designed to cut through chaos and demand immediate action. Riley had heard it before. In Kandahar. In Baghdad. In places where seconds meant the difference between breathing and flatlining. Riley, wait! Diane gasped, lungs burning. We don't know what's up there. Exactly. Riley didn't slow down. Her hand was already reaching for the ICU door handle when they hit the 3rd-floor landing. She pressed her ear against the steel, listening. No gunfire, no shouting, just the relentless scream of the alarm, and underneath it, something worse. Silence. She pushed through. The ICU was bathed in red emergency lighting, same as the ER had been, but the air was different here. Thicker, laced with the antiseptic burn of ventilator circuits running overtime and the faint, sour smell of fear. 12 beds. 11 had patients. The 12th was empty, sheets stripped, the monitor dark. Jenna was at the nurse's station, hands flying across the keyboard, her face illuminated by the glow of the computer screen. She looked up when Riley and Diane burst in, and the relief in her eyes was palpable. Thank God, Jenna breathed. I can't override the alarm. Something's wrong with the system. It's triggering false codes on every monitor. Riley scanned the room. Every patient monitor was flashing critical alerts. Code blue, code blue, code blue. But the patients themselves were stable. Chests rising and falling, IVs dripping, ventilators humming their mechanical rhythm. It's not the patients, Riley said, moving to the nearest monitor. She pulled up the diagnostic screen, fingers moving with the speed of someone who'd done this under fire. Someone's remotely triggered a cascade failure. The system thinks everyone's crashing, but it's ghost data. Diane stared at her. How do you know how to... Field medic training includes electronic warfare, Riley said without looking up. You learn to spot when someone's jamming your equipment. She pulled a USB drive from her pocket, small, black, military grade, and plugged it into the monitor. Where did you get that? Jenna asked. Doesn't matter. Riley's eyes were locked on the screen as lines of code scrolled past. I'm running a diagnostic bypass. If I can isolate the source of the override, there. The monitor blinked, then reset. The false alarm stopped. 1 bed down. Jenna, I need you to manually reset every monitor, Riley ordered. Pull the power, wait 10 seconds, reboot. It'll flush the corrupted signal. Jenna didn't hesitate. She moved. Diane set the duffel bag down and joined her, pulling plugs, counting seconds, rebooting. Slowly, the alarm silenced. The ICU returned to its baseline hum. Riley stood, yanking the USB drive free. Voss wanted us up here, away from the ER. Diane's stomach dropped. The patients downstairs are unguarded, Riley finished. Brennan and Hayes can't cover the whole ER alone. Voss is going to make a move. Jenna looked between them, her face pale. Who the hell is Voss? Someone I should have killed when I had the chance, Riley said flatly. She turned to Diane. We need to get back. Now. They were halfway to the stairwell when the lights went out again. Complete darkness this time. No red glow, no emergency backup. Just the sound of ventilators switching to battery power and the distant hum of the generators struggling in the sub-basement. Riley froze. They cut the main power. How long do we have? Diane whispered. 90 seconds before the batteries start failing. Riley's voice was calm, but Diane could hear the tension underneath, maybe less. Jenna's voice came from behind them, shaking. If the vents go down, my patients die. Riley pulled a flashlight from her other pocket. Small, tactical, the kind that cost more than most nurses made in a week. She clicked it on, sweeping the beam across the ICU. How many patients are vent-dependent? 3. Can you manually bag them if the power doesn't come back? For how long? As long as it takes. Riley handed the flashlight to Jenna. I'm going to fix this, but I need you to hold the line. Jenna took the light, her hand trembling. What if you can't? Riley's eyes were hard, certain. I don't fail twice. She turned and ran, Diane chasing after her, the duffel bag forgotten on the ICU floor. They hit the stairwell and Riley vaulted down, her movements fluid, controlled, like she'd trained for this exact scenario. Where are we going? Diane yelled. Sub-basement, generator room. Riley's voice echoed off the concrete. If Voss sabotaged the power, he did it there. They reached the basement level, cold, damp, lit only by a few battery-powered safety lights. The generator room was at the end of a long corridor, behind a heavy steel door marked Authorized Personnel Only. Riley didn't slow down. She hit the door at a run, slamming her shoulder into it. It didn't budge. "It's locked," Diane said, breathing hard. Riley pulled the tactical knife again. "No, it's barricaded." She wedged the blade into the gap between the door and the frame, prying. Metal scraped against metal. Something inside shifted. Riley braced her foot against the wall and pulled. The door gave. Inside, the generator room was a maze of pipes, electrical panels, and humming machinery. 2 industrial generators sat in the center, both running, both struggling. The main breaker panel was on the far wall, and standing in front of it, backlit by the glow of a laptop screen, was a figure in black tactical gear. Not Voss. Someone smaller, faster. The figure turned, and Diane's heart stopped. It was Martinez, the ER nurse, the one who'd been helping with the trauma patients all night, the one Diane had trusted to take care of the daughter from the car crash. Martinez smiled. It was cold, empty. "Hey, Diane." Surprised. Diane's world tilted. You're one of them?" "I prefer independent contractor." Martinez tapped a few keys on the laptop, and the generators groaned, their output dropping. "Voss pays better than the hospital, and the benefits are way more flexible." Riley stepped forward, knife in hand. "Step away from the panel." Martinez laughed. "Or what? You'll stab me? In front of your charge nurse?" She looked at Diane. "Did Riley tell you what she really is? Because I'm guessing she left out the part where she was dishonorably discharged for conducting unsanctioned ops in foreign territory, or the part where she's wanted by the DoD for theft of classified medical equipment." Diane's breath caught. "Is that true?" Riley didn't answer. Her eyes stayed locked on Martinez. "She didn't deny it," Martinez said, grinning. "See? Riley's not the hero. She's just better at hiding what she is." She tapped another key. The generators sputtered. "And in about 30 seconds, every patient on a ventilator is going to find out what happens when the power goes." Riley threw the knife. It wasn't a wild throw. It was precise, controlled, years of training compressed into one fluid motion. The blade buried itself in the laptop screen, shattering it. Sparks flew. Martinez stumbled back, cursing. Riley was already moving. She crossed the room in 2 strides, yanking Martinez away from the panel and slamming her against the wall. "Where's Voss?" Martinez spat blood. "Close enough." Riley pressed her forearm against Martinez's throat. "Not good enough." Diane ran to the breaker panel, scanning the switches. "Riley, I don't know which one." "Third from the left," Riley barked. "Flip it now." Diane flipped the switch. The generators roared to life, full power surging through the building. Somewhere above them, the lights flickered back on. The ventilators hummed. The ICU stabilized. Diane leaned against the panel, gasping for air. Riley let Martinez drop to the floor, unconscious. She turned to Diane, and for the first time all night, Diane saw something crack in her expression. Not fear, not anger, guilt. "Everything she said," Diane whispered. "Is it true?" Riley's jaw tightened. "Some of it." "Which parts?" "The parts that matter." Riley picked up the knife, wiping the blood off on her scrubs. "I was dishonorably discharged. I did run unsanctioned ops, and yeah, I took equipment that wasn't mine." She met Diane's eyes. "Because people were dying, and no one else was willing to break the rules to save them." Diane stared at her. "So you became a nurse?" "I became whatever I needed to be to keep people alive." Riley's voice was steady, unapologetic. "And tonight, that's exactly what I'm going to do." Before Diane could respond, her radio crackled to life. Brennan's voice frantic. "Diane, if you're hearing this, we've got a situation in the ER. Voss is here, and he's got hostages." Riley's face went hard. "How many?" Static. Then, "All of them." Quick question. If you were in Diane's position right now, would you trust Riley or walk away? Comment, "Trust" or "walk away." Riley hit the stairwell at a dead sprint. Diane 2 steps behind. No words, no plan. Just movement. Fast, tactical, the kind of controlled chaos that came from muscle memory older than thought. They reached the ER level in 40 seconds. Riley stopped at the door, hand raised. Listening. Silence. Not the good kind. The kind that meant someone had taken control. She cracked the door half an inch, peered through. The ER was a frozen tableau. Everyone, patients, visitors, staff, was on their knees in the center of the waiting room, hands on their heads. Brennan and Hayes were disarmed, their weapons on the floor 10 feet away. 3 figures in tactical gear stood guard, rifles raised. And in the middle of it all, leaning casually against the nurse's station like he owned the place, was Garrett Voss. He looked exactly like Riley remembered. Tall, lean, salt and pepper beard, eyes like polished stone. He was holding a pistol loosely in one hand, checking his watch with the other. Riley's entire body went rigid. Diane grabbed her arm.
"We need SWAT. SWAT's not coming," Riley whispered. "Voss has a counter-assault plan. He always does. The second they breach, he'll execute hostages." "Then what do we do?" Riley's mind raced. 42 hostages. 4 armed hostiles. 60 rounds between 2 cops. No backup. No time. She looked at Diane. "You ever fire a gun?" "Once. At a range. I hated it." "Good. You're on comms." Riley pulled a small radio from her belt. Military grade. Encrypted. "Channel 7.
If I say clear, you tell Brennan and Hayes to move. Understood?" Diane nodded, hands shaking. Riley checked the corridor. Clear. She moved. She slipped through the door, staying low, using the supply carts and gurneys for cover. The tactical team wasn't watching the perimeter. They were watching Voss, waiting for orders. Riley got within 15 feet of the nurse's station before Voss spoke. Riley. He didn't turn around. Didn't raise his weapon. Just smiled. "I know you're there. You always did have terrible operational security." Riley stood slowly, hands visible. "Let them go, Garrett." He turned then, and his smile widened. "Why would I do that? They're the only reason you haven't put a knife in my neck. You got what you came for. The fentanyl's gone. Martinez is down. You're out of time." Voss laughed. "You think I came here for drugs?" He gestured around the room. "This hospital moves 50 million in product every year. Fentanyl, morphine, ketamine, all logged, all clean, all untraceable if you know how to move it." He leaned closer. "I didn't come here to steal, Riley. I came here to build an empire. And you just walked into my boardroom." Riley's jaw clenched. "You can't hold this place. SWAT's en route. Let them come." Voss checked his watch again. "I've got 12 minutes before they breach. That's plenty of time to make my point." He pulled a phone from his pocket, tapped the screen, and turned it toward Riley. The image made her blood freeze. It was Jenna, in the ICU, on her knees, a gun pressed to the back of her head. "You left her alone," Voss said softly. "Tactical error." Riley's hands curled into fists. "If you hurt her, you'll what? You're unarmed, outnumbered, and completely out of leverage." Voss pocketed the phone. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk over here, nice and slow, and you're going to kneel with the rest of them. Then we're going to have a conversation about old times." Riley didn't move. "And if I don't?" Voss raised the phone, tapped a button. From the radio on Diane's belt, a gunshot echoed through the speaker. Riley's heart stopped. "That was a warning," Voss said. "Next one's real." Riley's breathing slowed. Her vision narrowed. She was calculating angles, distances, response times. 4 hostiles. 3 with rifles. 1 with a pistol. Brennan and Hayes unarmed but trained. Diane in the stairwell with comms. The math didn't work, unless she changed the variables. Riley raised her hands, started walking. Voss smiled. "There's the Riley I remember. Pragmatic to the end." She stopped 3 feet away, close enough to smell his cologne, close enough to see the scar on his jaw, the one she'd given him in Tijuana. "On your knees," Voss said. Riley knelt. The waiting room was silent. 42 people watching, waiting. Voss crouched beside her, voice low. "You cost me everything, Riley. My brother, my business, my reputation." He pressed the pistol against her temple. "So here's the deal. You're going to tell me where you stashed the equipment you took from my depot. The trauma kits, the surgical gear, the portable ultrasound units, all of it. And then I'm going to decide whether you die fast or slow." Riley's voice was calm. "I burned it." Voss blinked. "What?" "I burned all of it. Doused it in diesel and lit a match." She looked up at him. "Because I knew you'd come looking, and I wanted to make sure you got nothing." Voss's face twisted. He raised the gun. Riley moved. She grabbed his wrist, twisting hard, driving her shoulder into his chest. The gun went off. Ceiling tile exploded, and Riley used the momentum to throw him over her hip. He hit the floor hard, and Riley was already on him, knee on his throat, hand reaching for the pistol. One of the tactical team raised his rifle. "Clear!" Riley shouted. Diane keyed the radio. "Go, go, go!" Brennan and Hayes moved like lightning. Brennan tackled the nearest hostile. Hayes swept the legs out from under another. The third spun his rifle toward Riley and stopped, because standing in the doorway, holding Martinez's confiscated pistol, was the GSW kid from Bay 3. He fired twice. Center mass. The hostel dropped. The kid looked at Riley. We good? Riley stared. Who the hell are you? Undercover LAPD. He flashed a badge. Thanks for keeping me alive. Voss tried to roll, but Riley drove her knee down harder. Stay down. He laughed, blood trickling from his mouth. You think this is over? I've got teams in 6 hospitals. You stopped 1 shipment. 1. I'll be out in 48 hours, and I'll burn this whole city looking for you. Riley leaned close. Then I'll be waiting. She stood, letting Brennan cuff him. The ER erupted in sound, crying, shouting, relief. Diane emerged from the stairwell, running to check on patients. Hayes was on the radio calling for backup, for paramedics, for anyone. Riley walked to the window. Outside, red and blue lights were flooding the parking lot. SWAT, ambulances, news vans. It was over. Diane appeared beside her, breathing hard. Jenna? Safe. The shot was into the ceiling. Riley's voice was flat. Voss was bluffing. Diane let out a shaky breath. Then she turned to Riley. I need to know. Everything Martinez said. Was it true? Riley was quiet for a long time. Yeah, most of it. So what are you really? Riley looked at her. I'm someone who couldn't save everyone, so I became someone who saves anyone I can. She paused. Even if it costs me everything. Diane held her gaze. Then slowly, she nodded. Okay. You saved 42 people tonight. I don't care what your file says. Diane's voice was firm. You're one of us now. Riley's throat tightened. She looked away. Thanks. The doors burst open. SWAT flooded in, boots thundering, voices sharp and authoritative. Riley stepped back, blending into the chaos. By the time they started taking statements, she was gone. The sun came up at 6:42 a.m., painting the Los Angeles skyline in shades of bronze and ash. Diane stood in the ambulance bay, a cold cup of coffee in her hand, watching the last of the SWAT vehicles pull away. The ER was still a crime scene. Yellow tape across the medication room, evidence markers on the floor, detectives taking photos of bullet holes in the ceiling, 42 hostages, 0 deaths. It should have felt like a victory. Instead, Diane felt hollow. Riley was gone. She'd slipped out sometime between the breach and the debriefing, and no one had seen her leave. Brennan said she'd given a statement to the lead detective, but when Diane asked for a copy, they told her it was classified. Hayes mentioned something about federal involvement. The undercover cop, whose real name turned out to be Officer David Chen, just shook his head when Diane asked where Riley went. She doesn't stay, Chen had said quietly. That's not who she is. Now, 12 hours later, Diane was staring at the empty parking lot, wondering if Riley Kincaid had ever been real at all. Diane, she turned. Jenna was standing in the doorway, still in her scrubs, dark circles under her eyes. You okay? Yeah. You? My patients are stable. That's all I care about right now. Jenna stepped outside, wrapping her arms around herself against the morning chill. Did they find her? No. You think she's coming back? Diane shook her head. I don't think she can. Jenna was quiet for a moment. Then, Martinez is talking. Gave up the whole network. DEA's rolling up Voss's people across 6 hospitals. She paused. They want to talk to Riley. Witness protection, maybe immunity. But they can't offer anything if they can't find her. Diane's chest tightened. She saved everyone, Jenna. And now she's running again. Maybe that's all she knows how to do. Diane didn't answer. She finished the cold coffee and crushed the cup in her hand. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check the staff locker room. Locker 47. Diane's heart kicked. She ran. The locker room was empty. Everyone was either giving statements or going home. Diane found locker 47 in the back corner. No lock. She opened it. Inside was a duffel bag. Not the one with the fentanyl. That was in evidence. This one was smaller, olive green, military issue. Diane unzipped it carefully. A handwritten note sat on top. Diane, I'm sorry I didn't say goodbye. It's easier this way. Safer. What Martinez said was true. I was dishonorably discharged. I ran unsanctioned ops because the people I was trying to save didn't fit the mission parameters. Command wanted me to follow orders. I wanted to save lives. So I broke the rules. A lot of them. I stole medical equipment from a black market depot in Tijuana because a refugee camp 2 miles away was operating with nothing. No antibiotics, no anesthesia, no hope. Voss's crew was sitting on 50 crates of supplies they were going to sell to the highest bidder, while kids died from infected wounds. I couldn't let that happen, so I took it. All of it. Got people out, saved maybe 100 lives, and destroyed my career in the process. The DOD wanted me court-martialed. The DEA wanted me as a witness. I didn't want to be either. So I disappeared, changed my name, became a nurse, started over, I thought I could leave it all behind, but Voss found me, and people like him always will. So I'm leaving again. Not because I want to, because I have to. Because if I stay, everyone around me becomes a target. You ask me what I really am. Here's the truth. I'm someone who couldn't save my team in Baghdad, couldn't save Voss's brother in Tijuana, even though I tried, couldn't save myself from becoming exactly what the army trained me to be, a weapon that doesn't know how to stop. But tonight, I saved 42 people. And that's enough. Thank you for trusting me when you had no reason to. Thank you for being the kind of leader people follow into hell. And thank you for reminding me that not everyone in this world operates from a place of suspicion. The equipment in this bag is yours now. Trauma kits, suture supplies, portable ultrasound. Some of it's the stuff I took from Voss 3 years ago. The rest I've been collecting ever since. Use it. Save people. Don't ask where it came from. And if anyone asks about Riley Kincaid, tell them she was just a nurse who did her job. Stay safe, Diane. You're one of the good ones. Our Diane read it twice. Then a third time. She reached into the bag. Military-grade trauma kits, Israeli bandages, hemostatic agents, a portable ultrasound unit still in its case, supplies worth tens of thousands of dollars, supplies that could save lives in the field, in disasters, in moments when seconds mattered. At the bottom of the bag was something else, a photo. It was old, creased, sun-faded. It showed a younger Riley, maybe 25, in desert camo standing with a group of soldiers. They were all smiling, arms around each other, dust on their faces and hope in their eyes. On the back, written in faded ink, Fob Sharana, 2019, my team, my family. 7 faces in the photo, only one still alive. Diane's throat closed. She understood now. Riley wasn't running from the law. She was running from ghosts. She folded the note carefully, slipped it into her pocket, and zipped the bag. Her phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. One more thing. The ICU nurse. Jenna. Tell her to check bed 12. I left something for her. Diane ran upstairs. Bed 12 in the ICU, the one that had been empty during the lockdown, was still empty. But on the bedside table was a small box wrapped in plain brown paper. Jenna was at the nurse's station. Diane handed it to her. From Riley. Jenna opened it slowly. Inside was a military commendation medal. Bronze star. For valor in combat. The ribbon was faded, the metal tarnished, but the inscription was still clear. Latined. Riley Kincaid. Extraordinary heroism. Operation Enduring Freedom. Underneath it was a handwritten note, shorter than the one for Diane. You held the line when it mattered most. That takes a kind of courage most people never find. Keep it. You earned it tonight. Jenna's hands trembled. She pressed the medal to her chest, eyes shining. She gave me her bronze star, Jenna whispered. Why would she? Because she doesn't need it anymore, Diane said quietly. She's got new reasons to keep fighting. Jenna wiped her eyes. You think we'll ever see her again? Diane looked out the window at the sunrise. Somewhere out there, Riley Kincaid was already gone. New city, new name, new life, running from the past, running toward the next person who needed saving. I don't know, Diane said, but I hope so. 2 weeks later, a package arrived at Los Angeles Metro ER. No return address. Inside was a check for $50,000 made out to the hospital's trauma fund, and a single post-it note. For the next time the lights go out. Diane pinned it to the bulletin board in the break room, and every nurse who walked past it smiled, because they knew Riley Kincaid was still out there, still fighting, still saving lives. One night at a time. 3 months after the lockdown, Los Angeles Metro ER had returned to its baseline rhythm of controlled chaos. New nurses rotated in, old ones rotated out. The bullet holes in the ceiling had been patched. The medication room had new locks, new protocols, new surveillance. But some things hadn't changed. Diane still thought about Riley every time she opened locker 47. The duffel bag was gone, its contents distributed to trauma kits across the ER. But the memory remained. She'd tried searching for Riley online. No social media, no forwarding address, no trace. It was like she'd never existed, except for the check. And the medal Jenna kept in her locker. And the 42 people who walked out alive. It was a Tuesday night, slow for Metro standards, when the call came in. Incoming trauma, the dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio. Mass casualty event, warehouse fire in Vernon. Multiple victims, burn units full. They're routing overflow to us. Diane grabbed her tablet. How many? 12 critical. 24 walking wounded. First wave ETA 4 minutes. The ER exploded into motion. Gurneys prepped. Burn protocols pulled. Saline bags hung. Diane split her team. Martinez's replacement, a steady older nurse named Paul, took triage. Jenna came down from ICU to help. Brennan and Hayes, who'd become semi-permanent fixtures after the lockdown, cleared the ambulance bay. The first rig arrived at 9:18 p.m. Paramedics unloaded a man in his 30s, third-degree burns across 60% of his body, screaming in agony. Second rig brought 2 women, co-workers, both with smoke inhalation and second-degree burns on their arms and faces. Diane worked fast. Bay 1, get him on high-flow oxygen. Paul, start fluid resuscitation. Jenna, I need... She stopped. Because walking through the ambulance bay doors, covered in soot and ash, carrying a backboard with a teenage girl on it, was someone Diane recognized. Same build, same way of moving, same eyes, sharp, focused, taking in everything, but different hair, shorter, darker, and a different name on the paramedic jacket, Morgan Blake. Their eyes met for half a second. Riley's Morgan's face stayed neutral, professional. She helped transfer the girl to a gurney, rattled off vitals in a clipped, practiced voice. 16-year-old female, found unconscious on the second floor. Smoke inhalation, possible carbon monoxide poisoning, GCS of 12. Vitals are stable, but deteriorating. Diane forced herself to stay calm. Bay 3. Get her on a non-rebreather, 100% O2. Run a carboxyhemoglobin level. Morgan nodded once and stepped back, making room for the team. Diane grabbed her arm. I need to talk to you. Morgan's expression didn't change. I'm on a call. I've got more patients en route. 2 minutes. Outside. Morgan hesitated, then followed her to the ambulance bay. The night air was thick with smoke from the fire 3 miles away. Sirens wailed in the distance. Diane turned on her. Riley? Morgan, she corrected quietly. My name is Morgan Blake. I'm a paramedic with LA County Fire. I've been with them for 8 weeks. You're a paramedic now? Seemed like a good fit. Morgan's voice was steady, but there was something underneath. Exhaustion maybe, or resignation. Mobile, anonymous, I can move when I need to. So you just start over? Every time? Morgan looked away. It's safer. For who? Diane's voice rose. You saved 42 people, Riley. You're a hero. And you're hiding like a criminal. I am a criminal, Morgan said flatly. Dishonorable discharge, theft of military equipment, assault on foreign nationals. The only reason I'm not in Leavenworth is because the DoD doesn't want the optics of prosecuting someone who saved refugees. She met Diane's eyes. I'm not a hero. I'm a liability. And the people I care about become targets. Voss is in federal prison. Voss had partners, associates, people who want payback. Morgan's jaw tightened. 3 weeks after the lockdown, someone torched my apartment in Riverside. I wasn't there, but they left a message. They know who I am, and they're looking. Diane's stomach turned. So you just keep running? Until I can't anymore. Morgan glanced back at the ER. But I still do the job, because it's the only thing I know how to do. Before Diane could respond, another ambulance screamed into the bay. Morgan turned without hesitation, jogging toward it, already pulling gloves from her pocket. Diane watched her go, heart pounding. Over the next 2 hours, Morgan, Riley, whoever she was, brought in 6 more patients. Each time, she was professional, efficient, invisible. She didn't make eye contact with Diane again, didn't acknowledge Jenna, who'd spotted her and looked ready to cry. She was a ghost in a paramedic uniform. At 11:47 p.m., the last patient was stabilized. The fire was under control. The ER began to decompress. Morgan was packing up her rig when Diane walked over. Stay, Diane said. Just for tonight. Have coffee. Decompress. You don't have to run yet. Morgan paused, hands on the rig door. For a moment, Diane thought she might actually say yes. Then Morgan's radio crackled. Unit 12. We've got a structure collapse in Boyle Heights. Multiple victims trapped. Respond code 3. Morgan keyed the mic. Unit 12 responding. She looked at Diane. I have to go. I know. Diane's voice was soft. But Riley, Morgan, whoever you are, you're not alone. You know that, right? Morgan's expression cracked, just for a second. Something raw and aching flickered behind her eyes. Yeah, she said quietly. I know. She climbed into the rig. Her partner fired up the engine. The sirens started wailing, and then she was gone. Diane stood in the ambulance bay, watching the taillights disappear into the Los Angeles night. Jenna appeared beside her. Was that really her? Yeah. Is she okay? Diane thought about the way Riley, Morgan, had looked when she said I have to go. The weight in her voice, the exhaustion in her eyes, the way she kept moving because stopping meant facing everything she'd left behind. No, Diane said, but she's still fighting, and that's something. 2 days later, Diane was reviewing patient charts when Paul called her over to the nurse's station. "You've got a visitor," he said, nodding toward the waiting room. Diane looked up. Standing near the entrance, looking awkward and out of place, was Officer David Chen, the undercover cop from the lockdown. He was in plain clothes now, holding a manila envelope. Diane walked over. "Chen, what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you about Riley Kincaid." He glanced around, then lowered his voice. "Can we go somewhere private?" They ended up in the break room. Chen closed the door. "The DOD's looking for her again," he said without preamble. "They want her to testify in a federal case. Something about the Tijuana raid. If she doesn't cooperate, they're going to issue a warrant." Diane's chest tightened. "I don't know where she is." "Yeah, you do. You talked to her 2 days ago. Ambulance bay. I reviewed the security footage." Diane's blood ran cold. "You've been watching us?" "I've been watching for her." Chen's expression was grim. "Look, I'm not here to arrest her. I'm here to warn her. The feds are serious this time. They've got witnesses. Evidence. They're building a case. For what? Saving lives? For theft of government property. For operating outside the chain of command. For a dozen other charges that carry 10 years minimum." Chen handed her the envelope. "This is everything I could find. Case files, witness statements, DOD memos. She needs to see it. She needs to know what's coming." Diane took the envelope. "Why are you helping her?" Chen was quiet for a moment. "Because she saved my life. I was bleeding out in that trauma bay, and she kept me stable until the shooting stopped. I owe her." He met Diane's eyes. "And because what they're trying to do to her is wrong. She's not a criminal. She's a soldier who gave a damn when no one else did." He stood, heading for the door. Then he stopped. "If you see her again, tell her to get a lawyer. A good one. And tell her to stop running, because they're going to find her eventually. And when they do, she needs to be ready to fight." He left. Diane sat alone in the break room, staring at the envelope. Inside was Riley's entire file. Deployment records, commendations, incident reports, witness statements from Tijuana, photos of the refugee camp she'd saved, and at the bottom, a note in Chen's handwriting. "She deserves better than this. Help her if you can." Diane closed the file. She didn't know where Riley was, but she knew someone who might. Diane found Brennan at a coffee shop 2 blocks from the hospital, off duty, reading the Times. He looked up when she sat down across from him, sliding the envelope onto the table. "I need a favor," Diane said. Brennan eyed the envelope. "What kind of favor?" "The kind that doesn't go in a report." He set down his coffee. "I'm listening." Diane told him everything. Riley's past, the DOD case, Chen's warning. When she finished, Brennan leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. "You're asking me to help someone evade federal authorities. I'm asking you to help someone who saved 42 lives get a fair shot at defending herself." Brennan was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, scrolled through his contacts, and made a call. "Hayes, you still got that contact at the public defender's office? The one who handles military cases?" He paused. "Yeah, I need a name. Someone good. Someone who won't fold under DOD pressure." Another pause. "Thanks." He hung up and wrote a name on a napkin. Sarah Okonkwo, federal defense attorney. "She's expensive," Brennan said, "but she's won cases against the DOD before. If anyone can help Riley, it's her." Diane took the napkin. "How do I find Riley?" "You don't." Brennan's voice was firm. "She finds you. That's how she operates. But if you want to speed things up..." He pulled a business card from his wallet. On the back was a phone number, handwritten. "This is the emergency line for LA County Fire. You call dispatch, ask for paramedic Morgan Blake, say it's a family emergency. They'll route the message." Diane stared at the number. "You knew?" "I'm a cop. I run faces." Brennan's expression softened. "I knew 2 weeks after the lockdown. Ran her prints from the medication room. They pinged a DOD file under Riley Kincaid. Then they pinged again under Morgan Blake, LA County paramedic." He paused. "I didn't report it." "Why not?" "Because she saved my life, too." Brennan stood, dropping cash on the table. "Make the call, Diane. Before it's too late." Diane called that night. The dispatcher was professional, detached. "Morgan Blake is on shift. What's the nature of the emergency?" Diane hesitated. "Tell her it's Diane Cross from Metro ER. Tell her I need to see her. It's urgent." 3 hours later, Diane's phone buzzed. "Parking structure. Level 3. 20 minutes." Diane grabbed her coat and ran. The parking structure was cold, dim, nearly empty at 2 a.m. Diane found Riley, Morgan, standing near a concrete pillar, still in her paramedic uniform, arms crossed. "What's the emergency?" Riley's voice was guarded. Diane handed her the envelope. "The DOD is building a case. They want you to testify. If you don't, They're issuing a warrant. Riley opened the envelope, scanned the contents. Her face stayed blank, but Diane saw her hands tighten on the pages. How long have they been watching me? I don't know. But Chen says they're close. Riley closed the file, exhaling slowly. Then I need to move again. Tonight. Or you could stay and fight. Riley laughed, bitter. Fight with what? I've got no money, no legal team, no leverage. The DoD wants a scapegoat for Tijuana, and I'm the easiest target. You've got people who believe in you. Diane pulled out the napkin with Sarah Okonkwo's name. Brennan found you a lawyer, someone who's beaten the DoD before. And I've got 42 witnesses who'll testify that you saved their lives. Riley stared at the napkin. Diane, you don't understand. If I stay, if I fight this, everyone around me becomes a liability. They'll dig into your background. Brennan's, Jenna's. They'll find every mistake, every gray area, and they'll use it against you. Let them. Diane's voice was steady. I'm not afraid of them, and I'm not letting you run again. Riley looked up, and for the first time, Diane saw something break in her expression. Not fear, not anger, exhaustion. I'm so tired, Diane, Riley whispered. I've been running for 3 years. New city, new name, new life, and it never stops. They always find me. Then stop running. Diane stepped closer. Stand your ground. Let us help you. Riley's jaw clenched. She looked at the napkin, then back at Diane. If I do this, if I stay, people could get hurt. People get hurt every day. That's the job. Diane's voice softened. But you don't have to face it alone anymore. Riley was quiet for a long time. Then, slowly, she nodded. Okay, she said. I'll stay. I'll fight. Diane felt something loosen in her chest. Good. I'll set up a meeting with Okonkwo. We'll figure this out. Riley pocketed the napkin. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get ugly. It always does. Riley's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. But at least I won't be alone this time. The meeting with Sarah Okonkwo happened 2 days later in a windowless office downtown. Okonkwo was sharp, efficient, mid-40s, with close-cropped hair, and eyes that missed nothing. She reviewed Riley's file in silence, making notes, asking pointed questions. When she finished, she set down her pen. The DoD has a strong case, she said bluntly. Unauthorized removal of government property, operating outside the chain of command, violation of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Any one of these could put you away for 10 years. Riley's face stayed neutral. So what do? We build a counter-narrative. You didn't steal medical supplies. You reallocated them to save lives. You didn't operate outside the chain of command. You acted within the scope of a combat medic's duty to provide care under fire. Okonkwo leaned forward. We turn you from a thief into a whistleblower. Someone who exposed the failures of a system that let refugees die while supplies sat in a black market warehouse. Diane spoke up. Can we win? Maybe. If we can get the refugee camp survivors to testify. If we can prove the supplies were destined for illegal sale. If we can make the DoD look worse than Riley. Okonkwo's expression was grim. It's going to be a war. And it's going to cost you everything. Riley met her gaze. I've already lost everything. Let's go. The next 3 weeks were a blur. Okonkwo filed motions, subpoenaed records, interviewed witnesses. Riley stayed in LA, working her paramedic shifts, sleeping in a safe house Brennan arranged. Diane coordinated with the lockdown survivors, getting statements, affidavits, anything that proved Riley's character. Jenna tracked down 3 of the refugees Riley had saved in Tijuana. They agreed to testify. Chen dug up evidence that Voss's crew had been selling stolen military supplies for years, with DoD contractors turning a blind eye. The case started to shift. Then 2 days before the hearing, Riley disappeared. Diane got the call from Brennan at 6 a.m. She's gone. Safe house is empty. No note. No phone. Diane's heart sank. She ran. Maybe. Or maybe someone took her. Diane's blood went cold. Voss? He's still in federal lockup. But his crew isn't. Brennan's voice was tight. I'm checking traffic cams. Stay by your phone. Diane didn't wait. She grabbed her keys and drove to the safe house. The door was unlocked. Inside, everything was neat, undisturbed, except for one thing. On the kitchen table was Riley's bronze star medal, the one she'd given to Jenna, and underneath it, a note in Riley's handwriting. I'm sorry. I can't let you fight my war. They'll destroy you to get to me. Better I disappear than let that happen. Thank you for believing in me. Take care of each other. Our Diane crumpled the note in her fist. No, she whispered. Not this time. She pulled out her phone and called Okonkwo. Riley's gone. I think she's running. Okonkwo swore. If she doesn't show up for the hearing, the DoD wins by default. She'll have a federal warrant within hours. Then we find her. Diane's voice was hard. Before they do, Diane found her at 4 a.m. in the place she should have checked first. The Refugee Camp Memorial in Boyle Heights, a small park with a plaque commemorating the lives saved during humanitarian crises. It wasn't official, just a community effort. Names etched in stone, dates, places. And there, sitting on a bench in the dark, was Riley. She didn't look up when Diane sat down beside her. "How'd you find me?" Riley asked quietly. "Chen pulled your paramedic call logs. You've driven past this park 17 times in the last month, always slowing down, never stopping." Diane paused. "Until tonight." Riley stared at the plaque. One of the names read, Maria Santos, age 9, Tijuana, 2022. "I couldn't save her," Riley said, her voice hollow. "She had an infection. Simple, treatable. But we didn't have antibiotics. I watched her die in her mother's arms because some bureaucrat decided supplies were worth more on the black market than in her veins." Diane's throat tightened. "That's not your fault, isn't it?" Riley's hands clenched. "I was there. I had training. I had access. And I followed orders. I stayed in my lane, and she died." She looked at Diane, eyes red. "So I stopped following orders. I took the supplies. I saved 100 people, and I destroyed my life doing it." "You saved lives, Riley. That's what matters. Not to the DOD, not to Voss's crew, not to anyone who thinks rules matter more than people." Riley stood, pacing. "If I show up to that hearing, they'll tear me apart. They'll make me look like a criminal. And everyone who stood by me, you, Jenna, Brennan, Chen, they'll go down too. Let them try." Diane stood, stepping in front of her. "You think we don't know what we signed up for? You think we're afraid of the DOD?" She grabbed Riley's shoulders. "We're not backing down, and neither are you." Riley's jaw trembled. "I can't let you sacrifice yourselves for me." "Then don't." Diane's voice was fierce. "Don't make this about sacrifice. Make it about what's right. You saved 42 people in one night. You saved 100 in Tijuana. You've been saving people your entire life, and the only thing standing between you and vindication is fear." She squeezed harder. "So stop running. Stand up and fight." Riley's eyes glistened. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then slowly, she nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." The hearing took place at 9 a.m. in a federal courthouse downtown. The DOD brought 3 attorneys, a dozen witnesses, and a case file thick enough to stop a bullet. They sat on one side of the room, crisp and confident. On the other side sat Riley, Okonkwo, and a gallery packed with people who refused to let her face this alone. Diane, Jenna, Brennan, Hayes, Chen, Paul from the ER, the undercover cop who'd been the GSW kid, and behind them, a row of faces Riley hadn't seen in years. Refugees from Tijuana, flown in by Okonkwo, ready to testify. The DOD attorney stood first. She was sharp, polished, ruthless. She laid out the charges methodically. Theft, insubordination, violation of protocol. She painted Riley as a rogue operator who'd endangered missions, broken trust, and stolen government property for personal gain. It was damning, precise, effective. Then Okonkwo stood. She didn't shout, didn't grandstand. She just spoke the truth. She called the refugees to the stand. One by one, they testified. A mother whose son Riley had saved from sepsis. A teacher who'd lost his leg but kept his life because Riley had performed an emergency amputation with black market surgical tools. A 12-year-old girl who stood in front of the judge and said, in broken English, "She gave me my life back." Okonkwo presented evidence that the supplies Riley had taken were destined for illegal sale. DOD contractors working with Voss's crew, skimming inventory, selling to the highest bidder while refugees died. She called Diane to the stand. Diane testified about the lockdown, about Riley's leadership, about the 42 lives saved. She called Brennan. He testified about Riley's tactical precision, her courage under fire. She called Chen. He testified about Riley keeping him alive when protocol would have left him to bleed out. By the time Okonkwo rested her case, the DOD attorneys looked rattled. The judge called a recess. 2 hours later, he returned with his ruling. "Lieutenant Riley Kincaid," he began, "you stand accused of serious violations of military law. The evidence is clear that you acted outside the chain of command, that you removed government property without authorization, and that you operated in ways that violated standard protocol." Riley stood, face pale but steady. "However," the judge continued, "the evidence is equally clear that your actions saved over 100 lives, that the supplies you stole were destined for illegal sale by individuals within the very system prosecuting you, and that your conduct, while unorthodox, falls within the scope of a combat medic's duty to provide care under exigent circumstances." He paused. I am dismissing all charges. Additionally, I am ordering a full investigation into the DoD contractors involved in the Tijuana supply chain. This court recognizes that Lieutenant Kincaid acted not as a criminal, but as a soldier who upheld the highest ideals of her service, saving lives at great personal cost. The gallery erupted. Riley stood frozen, unable to process it. Okonkwo gripped her shoulder. You're free. Riley's knees buckled. Diane caught her, holding her up as the room spun. You did it, Diane whispered. You won. Riley looked at her, tears streaming down her face. We won. Outside the courthouse, the sun was blinding. Riley stood on the steps, surrounded by the people who'd fought for her. Refugees hugged her. Diane gripped her hand. Jenna cried openly. Brennan handed her a folder. Your discharge has been upgraded to honorable. You're eligible for veterans' benefits. Medical, housing, education. Riley stared at the folder. I don't know what to say. Say you'll stop running, Chen said, grinning. Riley looked at Diane. Can I come back to Metro? Diane smiled. Your locker's still empty. 6 months later, Riley Kincaid, no longer Morgan Blake, no longer hiding, walked into Los Angeles Metro ER in mint green scrubs. Diane looked up from the nurse's station. You're late. Traffic, Riley said, smirking. Bay 2 needs a trauma workup. MVA. Possible internal bleeding. Riley grabbed gloves. On it. She moved through the ER with the same precision, the same focus. But something was different now. She wasn't running anymore. She was home. Epilogue. 3 years later, Riley opened a nonprofit training program for combat medics transitioning to civilian healthcare. It was funded by the settlement from the DoD contractor investigation and donations from the lockdown survivors. Diane served as co-director. Jenna ran the mental health wing. Brennan taught tactical medicine. They called it the Kincaid Initiative. And every year, on the anniversary of the lockdown, they held a memorial service for Maria Santos and the other refugees who hadn't made it. Because Riley Kincaid learned something that night in the ER. You can't save everyone, but you can honor them by saving the next person, and the one after that, and the one after that. One night at a time. If this story reminded you that courage isn't about never being afraid, it's about showing up anyway, drop a comment with I showed up. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it. Because the Riley Kincaids of the world are out there, fighting battles we'll never see. Let's make sure they know they're not alone. Like, subscribe and stay ready. Because you never know when your one night will come.